Hey, what's going on? This is Sports Truth. I'm your host, your favorite host in the entire world, Jordan Harris. So, you might have seen a video that I did recently where I was explaining how the college football playoffs, how it's going to be different this year. Obviously, it's going to be 12 teams. The selection criteria is a little bit different. They just put that out earlier today, or I guess it was yesterday by the time you're listening to this. I did a video explaining exactly how that process is going to work. I don't want to talk about that whole process in this video though, so I'll skim through that. The main purpose of this video is to talk about how this selection is going to impact our Hurricanes this year and going forward. All right, so just to do a quick overview of how this whole selection situation is going to go. It's 5 plus 7. A whole lot of you have probably heard 5 plus 7. Don't really know what that means. But what the five is the conference champions. So there's going to be five conference champions who automatically get into the playoffs, into the tournament. Four of those top five conference champions will get a bye week. Okay, so the five that in the 5 plus 7 represents the conference champions. The seven will be the at-large teams that get into the playoffs. Obviously, 5 plus 7 equals 12. Five of those are going to be conference champions. The other seven are going to be at-large teams. That just means that they were ranked high enough to get into the playoffs. Okay, let's move right on through this quick recap. Power Four, we know the Power Four includes ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, and the Big 10. And then there's going to be five conference championships from the group of five. So that's nine total conference champions. Only five of those will get automatic bids into the tournament. Only four of those nine conference championships or conference champions will get into the tournament with a bye week. All right, only four of those teams will get a bye week. Also explained a quick scenario that I put together in my last video, but you can watch that. I don't want to go through that right now. It'd take a little too long to do that. Okay. So now let's talk about what these playoff rules and what this criteria means for our Hurricanes. The new 5 plus 7 college football playoffs. There's three different things I want to talk about on how it could really impact and affect our Hurricanes this season and going forward. For one, it makes it much easier for our Hurricanes to make the playoffs. Much easier. And maybe instead of saying easier, I should say that there's more opportunity to make the playoffs. Because I mean, if you win the ACC championship, you're almost guaranteed to get into the tournament. Almost guaranteed. There are some scenarios, which I actually explained a scenario in the last video, where that doesn't happen. But if you win the ACC, you're almost guaranteed to get into the tournament going forward. And the reason why I'm not big on saying easier to make the playoffs is because we all know our Hurricanes have not won the ACC yet, ever, which is crazy to think of. But we have not won the ACC yet. So is it easier? No, because we haven't won the ACC, but there's definitely a streamlined opportunity going forward. There's going to be less guesswork. There's going to be less SEC bias. There's going to be less Big Ten bias. There's going to be less talking points about they should have gotten in or they should have gotten in. If you just take care of business and win your conference, you just about get in, okay? So that's the second point is win the conference, you get in. And if you win the conference in like spectacular fashion, where you maybe just will lose one game or maybe you lose two games, but you blow out the team in the conference championship, you might actually get a bye because there's four teams that's going to get a bye out of those five conference champions. So most seasons, it's pretty safe to assume that the Big 12, the Big 10, the ACC, and the SEC will be the four champions that make the tournament and get the bye. And then the Power 5 team that gets in, they most likely will be the lowest ranked of all five of those. So it's pretty easy to assume that most years that Power 5 team is going to have to play in the regular round of the tournament and not get the bye week. And then those Power 4 teams will get the bye week. So, again, win the conference, get in, and you actually would most likely get a bye week on top of that. So, I'm a huge fan of that. Huge fan of it. Let's talk about the the most important part that I'm thinking of, okay? So there's been a lot of talk about Florida State leaving the ACC. And for whatever reason, people assume that Florida State and Miami is a package deal no matter what happens. Y'all know I live in Kansas. I grew up rooting for the Jayhawks like crazy. The Jayhawks and Missouri are crazy rivals, like crazy rivals. Fights in the stands all the time, crazy rivals. So it was like, it almost looked like KU and Missouri was a package deal at one point. And eventually those two teams split conferences and both schools are doing just fine, you know. Um, for a long time, those two teams didn't play each other in basketball, but now they're starting to play each other again, and it'll most likely be one of those things where it'd be a home and home thing that they agree to in the near future. But I'm seeing something similar to that in the future for Miami and Florida State. I don't think they've got to be in the same conference to keep their existence. I don't think that's got to be the case. I don't think that they've got to be in the same conference I don't think they got to be in the same conference to agree to play each other every year. If Florida State wants to leave, I say go ahead and let them go wherever they want to go. If they want to go to the SEC and get mopped up every year, cool, go for it. I think the best thing for Miami to do is to stay put, like stay right where we are in the ACC, continue playing these teams. Once we get more talent in, I say beat these teams up, win the conference every year, and find yourself in the college football playoff getting a free win, a bye week every year. And let Florida State go to the SEC or go to the Big Ten, finish third or fourth every year in the conference, hope that they're ranked high enough to get an at-large bid and barely make the playoffs, and just live in mediocrity for the rest of their life. Like if they want to do that, I say go for it. I think it would be crazy for Miami to follow Florida State wherever they end up going. Wherever they end up going, I say let them go. We stay where we are and just beat these teams up, keep getting to the playoffs. I don't know if you remember, but years ago, there was a team that would annoy me every single season because they would beat up on, I think it was the Mountain West. They would beat up on them, and they were playing against teams that just weren't any good. They would beat up on them every single season. And then at the end of the year, they would complain because they didn't make the championship game, the BCS championship. And this team I'm talking about is Boise State. Boise State used to drive me crazy because they would beat up on all these teams every season. They would have opportunities to play, big teams throughout the season, but they would never put them on their schedule. They would play, the 7 or 8 games from their conference, and then they would do like the other 3 or 4 games out of conference. They would play teams that were just horrible. So I'm like, if you have the opportunity to play better teams and you don't put those better teams on your schedule, and then you blow through all of those, and at the end of the season you're only ranked number 7, it's because you're scheduling these cupcakes and you're beating them up and down the field, and nobody cares to rank you higher. But if the Hurricanes are in the ACC and they're going to be playing decent teams, they're going to play against Clemson, they're going to play against North Carolina State, they're going to play against North Carolina. I say play those schools, schedule the Texas A&Ms, schedule Florida, those kind of schools outside of the conference. Get through that season losing 1 or 2 games. It's a real good chance that we'll make the playoffs every single year doing that, which is a wonderful opportunity if you ask me. So that's my thoughts on it. What do y'all think? Do you think that this is a step in the right direction? Do you think this is crazy that they've done it this way? Do you think there's a better way to do it? Also, leave in the comment section the thoughts on these. Like, do you think it will be easier or will there be more opportunities for the Hurricanes to make the playoffs? Do you think that if we win the conference, we get in and we potentially get a bye? Do you think that's a wonderful thing like I think? Or do you think a little bit differently on there? And then also, let me know your thoughts on if you are kind of in the same mindset that I'm in, which is like, whatever Florida State's going to do, let them do that. We're not a package deal. Let's stay right where we are. if we do move, let's go to the Big 12 and win. Like, go to the Big 12 and win there. Like, anyway, that's my thoughts on it. What do y'all think? Do you think Florida State? Do you think Miami should follow Florida State, increase the competition, play against those teams, or do you think we should just stay and do what we're doing in the ACC and start to win that conference like we need to be? All right, that's all that I got for you today. Please do like the video, subscribe to the channel. You could be anywhere in the world, but you're here with me, and I truly appreciate that. Take care. God bless. Peace.